Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt. Today I want to talk about learning more than one foreign language at a time. This is something that I don't think has a very clear answer, but there are some things that are worth thinking about as you go about doing that or thinking about doing that. Now, beyond the strategy and the method that you're using to learn each of these foreign languages, I think it comes down to two main factors. The first is how much time you're putting into each of these foreign languages, and then the second is the quality of time, right? The quality of your study into each of the foreign languages. So let's break each of these down. So the first one, how much time you put into each of these languages. This is something that I think a lot of people don't realize how long it's going to take to get fluent or competent in the foreign language that they're learning. And if you're definitely underestimating how long that's going to take, it's definitely going to be the case for more than one language at a time. And if you just start breaking down the math, it starts to become very overwhelming very quickly. So let's say you're trying to balance three languages at the same time, right? And you've identified that maybe you need to do an hour every single day. Well, that's 3 hours a day. And let's say you get home from work at 6, right? 6 to 9, that's a lot of time. Are you willing to put in that time to get very good at all three of those languages? Are you motivated enough? These are some things that I think are worth at least thinking about as you consider balancing more than one language at a time. And inevitably, probably what happens for a lot of people is they don't do the 3 hours, but they kind of split the 1 hour into three parts between the languages. And at that point, you're really not making as much progress. It's very slow on all three of them. And the reality is, too, a lot of people that are balancing more than one language are at that beginner stage. And it's fun and new. There's this novel aspect of learning a foreign language. You're speaking for the first time, but eventually that wears off. And once it wears off, now you're kind of stuck at this place where you're kind of at a very low level at three languages, and it's going to be a grind to get to that fun and compelling place. So that could be a big problem, right? Because chances are, you're going to have to put in that time no matter what to get into compelling content. And being stuck at that low level is going to probably be a grind, right? The thing about it is, too, there's a quality aspect as well. So, you have to consider like how fresh you are when you are learning each of these languages, right? So let's say you're learning two languages at the same time, right? And you're going to dedicate an hour, right? Well, in that second hour, you're probably going to be less fresh. You're probably going to be, just a little bit less motivated, and you're going to be making less progress on that second language. Even if you split it up, the second hour is going to be less effective, and you're stuck back at that kind of situation where you're not really spending a lot of time in each of the languages, and the quality is really not that great. So, there's that aspect to consider as well. Now, there is kind of a counter argument a little bit where maybe there's an advantage of learning similar languages, right? So think Spanish or Portuguese, right? There's similar vocabulary, there's similar grammar concepts. And while that might be true, I think a lot of people aren't necessarily learning very similar languages. They might be learning completely different languages, right? Say one is an Asian language and one is a European language. And at that point, you're probably not getting a lot of advantage from similar grammar structures or vocabulary. So in a lot of ways, I think that the whole similar language argument is kind of this rationalization, trying to rationalize that, hey, it is okay for me to be learning more than one language at a time. Because, let's say you just learn one language first very well. Well, learning both languages at the same time, even if they're similar, that's not unique to doing them at the same time, right? You could learn one of the languages very good, right, at a very high level, and then take that knowledge that you've gained into noticing, those similar grammar structures or vocabulary. So it's not necessarily like a unique advantage in that situation. Now, there might be cases and instances where, it makes sense to learn more than one language at a time, right? Maybe you're slowly ramping down one language and you do want to start a new one. You're going to gradually do that. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe you're at a very high level with both the languages and it's not a lot of effort, right? You're enjoying it, you're consuming compelling content, and that makes sense. And ultimately, in the end of the day, people have different priorities and different interests on what they want to do. And ultimately, that's what you really should do. But just these concepts are worth thinking about. And I think a lot of this is kind of influenced by this whole polyglot culture where there's a lot of polyglots that they say, oh, they know 6 languages, and there's probably this obligation, this kind of pressure to maintain this appearance of having to, to balance each of the 6 languages they know and to keep up with them or to learn more languages. And for some people that maybe get inspiration from them, they want to be that polyglot and they want to get there as quick as possible, and they think the best way is learning 3 languages at the same time versus focusing on the one, or that it's more doable because someone claims they speak 8 languages and that they're studying all these languages. But no matter who you are, you're always going to run down into that same component, right? How much time investment and the quality of time you put in, right? It doesn't matter if you're a polyglot or a complete beginner. Everyone's going to run into that problem. So you have to ask, right, is that polyglot putting in 6 hours a day into each of their languages? Maybe if that's their full-time job, but still, there's going to be that quality of time aspect, the number of hours. So it's just something worth thinking about if you're going to be learning more than one language at a time. So anyways, that's what I had to say. I know there's probably some people that disagree with me, but leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.